you're looking to spice up your palate, this dish is probably for you. This jerk chicken recipe has these sweet and spicy flavor notes, plus this caramelized flavor from the chicken, all laid over a bed of coconut lime rice and black beans, creating a damn tasty dish. And clearly, judging by the numbers, it's a perfectly healthy lunch too, so let's jump in on how to make it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do here is just quickly prep our marinade. The first thing we're going to add is roughly 5 or 6 stems of green onion, 150 grams of red onion, 4 cloves of garlic, and 3 tablespoons of minced ginger. And I roughly chop my ginger before adding it so it blends easier. 50 grams of soy sauce, 30 grams of brown sugar, 45 grams of apple cider vinegar, 1 to 2 habanero peppers, depending on how spicy you want it. I'm just going to use 1. Roughly 7 stems or so of fresh thyme, 2 tablespoons of allspice, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of salt, half a tablespoon of black pepper, and the juice of 1 or 2 limes. Then we'll give this all a nice blend until it's nice and smooth. And once we have the marinade blended well, I'm going to separate it into 3 parts here. Setting aside 2 bowls, I'm going to pour about 6 or so large spoonfuls of marinade in each. One will be used for basting during the cooking process for the chicken, and the other will be used for our sauce later. The remaining marinade will then be poured over roughly 850 grams of raw chicken breasts here that have been cut into halves. And like I noted in the chicken parm video, which as a quick plug you should check out because that's an insanely delicious recipe. As a rule of thumb that I like to follow, I basically just take the whole chicken breast and then I cut it in half to effectively create 2 servings. Once that's mixed in well, we can set the chicken off to the side, and while that's marinating, we're going to make some tasty coconut lime rice and beans. To a saucepan here, we're going to add 200 grams of rice, 150 grams of unsweetened light coconut milk, 250 grams of chicken stock, or water if you don't have chicken stock, 200 grams of drained black beans, and then a generous pinch of salt. These beans and rice need a lot of salt, so don't go light here. We'll bring this to a boil and then turn to a low simmer until the rice is soft and tender. Alright, so once our rice is done, we can go ahead and fluff it up a little bit. Then we'll add the juice of 1 to 2 limes, depending on how limey you want it. And if I wasn't so forgetful, I would have added some lime zest as well. It would just give it a nice limey punch to the rice and beans. We'll give this a good mix, then give it a taste to adjust for any of the seasonings. For instance, mine needed a little bit more salt for how I liked it, but adjust according to your flavor preferences. But once we have it where we want it, we'll place this off to the side. To cook our chicken, the procedure here is going to be pretty simple. To an oiled cast iron skillet set over medium-high heat, we'll place the chicken in and just simply let sear. And then we're just going to flip back and forth, basting the chicken with our reserved marinade from earlier. I prefer cooking the chicken in a cast iron here. I think it gives it a slightly better sear than a non-stick skillet. But honestly, if you have an air fryer, it'd probably be best to cook it in that instead. So if you have one of those, I would use that instead, but frankly, any of these options work. So don't fret at all if you don't have one. But that chicken looks insane. But once all of our chicken is cooked, we're simply going to remove it from the skillet and set it off to the side before we cut it later. The last thing we're going to make is a quick, simple sauce to put atop the rice and chicken. In a saucepan over low to medium heat, we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste here, which will simply add a little bit of body to the sauce. We'll let the tomato paste cook off its rawness for about a minute or so, just to get rid of some of that bitter flavor. And then we're going to add in our reserved marinade. Then we'll let this simmer for a quick second to let over the flavors infuse and mix together. Once that's there, we can simply set this off to the side. And like I mentioned, before we prep our lunches, we're going to quickly cut up our chicken from earlier. To make the prepping a little bit easier and more organized, I'm going to keep each breast intact here as I cut them up, just as we did in the chicken parm video. You certainly don't have to do this, obviously. I mean, if you just wanted to cut them all up into bite-sized pieces and throw them in a bowl, that would be perfectly fine. But once we're done cutting up all our chicken, we can get on with prepping our lunches. First, simply here, I'm going to start by equally splitting the coconut lime, rice, and beans across 5 containers. You can measure it out if you want, but since I'm going to eat it all anyways, I'm not too worried about being precise per serving here. And then on top of that, we're going to take each sliced chicken breast, layer that goodness over the rice and beans, and then we'll take some of this tasty sauce and lay it over each chicken breast. And as a final little touch here, because I think it makes it look good and taste good, I'm going to spread over some thinly sliced green onion. But there you have it, 5 unbelievably tasty and delicious jerk chicken bowls that you just straight up will not regret making for your lunches. Per usual, here's the macro breakdown for each serving, as well as the ingredient list, most of which can be found on our website, which is listed in the description as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this meal. Be sure to like and subscribe and let us know in the comments below if you have any other meal requests.